Have you ever spoken out only to regret it later, felt the sting of truth turned against you? In the art of power, not every moment deserves your voice. Today, we unveil Machiavelli's chilling warning: 9 moments where silence is not just golden. It is survival. If you want to outmaneuver fools, tyrants, and manipulators, you must master when never to open your mouth. In the court of power, every word is a weapon, but not every weapon should be drawn. The man who controls his tongue controls his fate. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not fear. Silence is power in its most disciplined form. You see, the world rushes to speak. The weak, the loud, the desperate, they all rush to fill the air with noise, hoping their voice will grant them weight. But a prince, a true ruler, knows better. He understands that speaking is not always communication. Often, it is exposure. Each word you utter, every opinion you share, every truth you offer, it reveals something: your intention, your fear, your direction, your limits, your hand. A ruler must remain unreadable. And what better cloak than silence? When a man speaks, he announces himself to the world. He lays out his map. He makes his beliefs traceable, his loyalties chartable, his emotions are visible. The more he speaks, the more transparent he becomes. And transparency is dangerous. It invites enemies, it offers ammunition, it destroys mystique. Machiavelli observed that mystery fuels respect. That which is not understood becomes feared. That which is not revealed becomes protected. When a ruler is silent, those around him project onto him their own interpretations. One sees wisdom, another sees danger, another sees cunning, but none are certain, and uncertainty breeds caution. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine a man who speaks freely, who explains his every action, who argues, corrects, defends, insists. That man invites challenge, he invites mockery, he invites analysis. And slowly, with every syllable, his power evaporates. Because the essence of power is not what others know. It is what they don't. Silence does not mean inaction. It does not mean indifference. It means control. It means waiting. It means understanding that the tongue must be reined with the same discipline as a sword. A prince who speaks too much is like a general who reveals his battle plans before the war. He is already defeated. Even in diplomacy, silence becomes a masterstroke. The one who speaks last often speaks strongest. Let others show their cards first. Let them grow nervous in your quiet. Watch them squirm to fill the void you've left. Their desperation will reveal more than their words intend. Their need for your response, their impatience for your approval. These are signs. In your silence, they reveal themselves. And in revealing themselves, they become predictable, vulnerable, manageable. Do not mistake this with cowardice. Silence is not retreat. It is positioning. A lion does not roar every time it sees prey. It waits. It moves slowly. It watches and then it strikes. Your silence is the same. You do not need to comment on every matter. You do not need to correct every falsehood. You do not need to win every argument, because real power is not in being right. It is feared, it is in being respected, it is in being untouchable, and that is a status silence helps you build. There are moments when a single sentence can undo years of strategy. A careless word in a public room, a confession made to the wrong ear, a joke that echoes into places it shouldn't. Words cannot be undone. But silence, it lingers, yet never betrays. Observe how the powerful behave at any age, in any palace. In any battlefield, the truly dominant speak less. They let others rush in to impress, to explain, to justify. Meanwhile, they listen, they measure, they weigh, they calculate. And when they do speak, the room holds its breath. not because of what is said, but because of how rare their words are. That scarcity gives weight, that economy gives strength. Most people talk to feel seen, but the wise learn that true influence is earned through presence, not noise. A single glance, a pause before a sentence, a silence in a critical moment, these shape perceptions of more than 1,000 speeches. Let them underestimate you in your silence. Let them guess, speculate, even worry. You lose nothing in being unreadable, but you risk everything in being understood. The louder the world becomes, the more powerful silence becomes. In a time of endless talking, the one who speaks least becomes the one everyone listens to, because he's the only one left with something worth hearing. Every time you speak, you reveal a piece of yourself, and most men, most fools do not even realize they are doing it. The tongue, once unleashed, is a traitor to the mind, a spy of the soul. It leaks fear, doubt, insecurity, need. And worse, it does it proudly. They think they are expressing themselves. In truth, they are exposing themselves. A prince cannot afford to do that, because speech is not neutral. It is never just words. It is a confession. It is broadcast. It is a mirror, reflecting back your inner structure to those who know how to see it. And there are always eyes watching, listening, measuring, calculating. You think you are being honest. Others are identifying your soft points. You think you're sharing your thoughts, they are mapping your emotions. You think you're standing up for yourself, they are marking how easily you are provoked. Machiavelli understood this fundamental truth of power. Words are the currency of the weak. The strong do not explain themselves. They impose themselves. The strong do not debate, they move in silence, execute, and let the results speak for them. The weak need to be understood. The strong only need to be obeyed. Most people speak in hope of validation. They talk because they want to be reassured, accepted, included. But what they don't realize is that every word can be twisted, misunderstood, quoted, distorted, remembered. Words once spoken leave your control. They are no longer yours. They belong to the listener and their interpretation. And the listener may be a friend, a rival, or worse, a cunning observer waiting to strike. In politics, in power, even in personal influence, speech must be calculated like strategy in war. You do not just say what feels good. You say only what serves your agenda. If it does not serve, remain silent. Because in power, words are not just communication, they are weapons. And weapons in untrained hands always cause self-injury. Notice how easily people give themselves away in conversation. A small complaint reveals frustration. A story reveals their need for recognition. A joke uncovers bitterness. A quick response betrays emotional insecurity. All unintentional, all uncontrolled, and all usable by someone who understands the rules of the game. Even in simple dialogue, people unconsciously show where they hurt, what they fear, and what they crave. And once someone knows what you crave, they know how to control you. A man who needs approval will be manipulated with praise. A man who fears rejection will be ruled with silence. A man who constantly explains himself reveals that he feels threatened and invites more threat. This is why the prince must speak rarely and never from a place of weakness. The tongue must never move before the mind has measured the cost. In every setting, whether public or private, words must serve purpose, not emotion. Speak to guide others, not to release your own pressure. Speak to frame the battlefield, not to expose your wounds. A ruler who explains too much is not trusted, he is pitied. One who defends himself too often is not respected, he is seen as insecure. One who reveals his fears openly is not followed, he is left behind. There is no room in power for such displays. Power demands posture, not confession. Even your tone, your pacing, your urgency, these are read by others like maps. If you speak quickly, they sense fear. If you speak too long, they sense guilt. If you are loud, they assume you're trying too hard. They won't tell you this, but they will act on it. Slowly, silently, they adjust their behavior toward you. And you will notice you are no longer the one in control. That is the cruel irony of speech. It feels like power, but it gives power away. Like a man pouring water from his own cup, thinking he is quenching thirst, when in fact he is draining his own reserves. The clever observer watches, collects, remembers, and when the moment is right, he strikes not with a sword, but with your own words. A prince must always remember, silence hides strategy, but speech displays weakness. The more you reveal, the easier you are to move. The easier you are to move, the less power you have, and the less power you have, the more you will try to speak. A tragic cycle, one that only the wise are brave enough to break. Power does not simply belong to the one who speaks. It belongs to the one who knows when to speak. And even more importantly, when not to. A word, no matter how true, is a weapon that only strikes when timed with precision. The foolish believe that speaking first is a sign of strength, that rushing into explanation, confession, or argument shows courage or conviction. But in reality, it only shows lack of discipline, lack of understanding, lack of control. Timing is everything. Machiavelli saw it in every court, every battle, every whisper in a hallway. The man who speaks too soon loses his leverage. The man who speaks too late loses his moment. The prince must learn the rhythm of power, when to hold back, when to press forward, and when to strike with silence. To speak before your enemy has revealed their position is madness. You hand over your plans while theirs remain hidden. You give them time to adjust, to manipulate, to prepare. And what is worse, your words will not hit where it hurts. Because you do not yet know where they are vulnerable. The impatient always strike blind. The disciplined strike with precision. A well-timed silence can achieve what 1,000 speeches never could. Imagine a room full of voices, all arguing, justifying, defending. One man remains quiet, watching, listening, not because he has nothing to say, but because he understands that the value of speech increases with scarcity. The longer he waits, the more tension builds. The more tension builds, the more his eventual words carry weight. And when he finally speaks, everyone listens. Not because of the volume of his voice, but because of the force of his restraint. Now look at the common man. He blurts out every thought as it arrives in his mind. He cannot sit with discomfort. He cannot bear uncertainty. He confesses prematurely. He apologizes too soon. He reacts before he understands the full game. And in doing so, he becomes predictable, controllable, weak. It is not the truth that gives a man power. It is the delivery. Say the right thing at the wrong time, and you are a fool. Say the wrong thing at the right time, and you might be seen as a genius. The world doesn't reward truth, it rewards performance, and timing is the difference between theater and disaster. Even when you must correct a lie, even when the facts are on your side, even when justice is burning in your chest, you must ask, is now the moment to speak? Will your words serve your position, or will they only serve your pride? Because pride is impatient. But power waits, power observes, power is willing to be misunderstood for a moment in order to control the outcome forever. This is why the prince does not rush to explain. He does not clarify every rumor. He does not run after every whisper with an answer. Let others wonder. Let them speak first. Let them get comfortable. The more they talk, the more they expose. And when their guard is lowered, then, and only then, you speak, and your words land like a blade, clean and final. Think of a battlefield. You don't charge into the fog. You wait. You study the wind. You watch for movement. You let the enemy expose their flank, then you strike. Speech is no different. You may only get one moment to speak with true effect. Waste it, and you spend the rest of your life reacting. Time it well, and a single sentence can bend the room in your favor. A prince must understand that silence is not empty space. It is strategy. In every conversation, there is a pause that changes the tone. A hesitation that signals strength. A silence that creates anticipation. That moment is gold. Use it. Let others fill the silence with their weaknesses, while you prepare to speak only when your words become inevitable. Watch how people speak in crisis. The first to speak is often the first to fall. They panic. They reveal too much. They try to regain control through noise. But the one who pauses, who breathes, who says nothing until everything is ready, that one owns the moment. That one owns the outcome. Words are like arrows. They must be released at the precise second when they will do the most damage, and no sooner. The bowstring is silent, the aim is strategy, the release is timing. Without these, all you have is noise. All you do is miss. The desire to be heard is the most common disease of the common man. He speaks not to influence, but to feel important. He floods the air with opinions, with justifications, with desperate attempts to be recognized. But recognition is not respect, and attention is not power. The prince understands this. He does not seek to be heard. He seeks to be remembered. He does not crave applause. He commands silence. Most people speak because they cannot endure the void of not being acknowledged. They are terrified of being overlooked, so they offer their voice as currency, hoping to buy attention, approval, and belonging. But in the pursuit of being seen, they reveal everything: their values, their fears, their longings. Their ignorance, the more they speak, the more exposed they become. A prince is made of something else entirely. He does not speak unless his silence has already done most of the work. He is not loud, but when he speaks, his voice cuts through the noise like a blade through silk. His silence before the moment speaks louder than any declaration, and that is why people fear him, because they cannot read him. They cannot predict him. They cannot figure out what he thinks, or where he stands, or what he intends. And fear is born from uncertainty. To be heard is easy. Any fool with a mouth can speak, but to be feared, that requires patience, discipline, and restraint. That requires the ability to sit in silence while others reveal themselves. It requires walking into a room and not trying to dominate it with volume, but with presence. It requires understanding that power is not in the noise you make, but in the space you command. When most people speak, they are hoping to convince someone of something. They argue, they explain, they overshare, but the prince never explains. He never justifies. He never debates with those beneath him, because explanation suggests insecurity, justification suggests doubt, debate suggests equality, and a true ruler acknowledges none of these. His silence unsettles. It forces others to fill the gap. They start talking more. They start speculating. They start revealing their cards just to get a reaction. But he gives them nothing, and in giving nothing, he gains everything. Control, influence, fear. In a room full of voices, the silent man stands out. He becomes a question mark, a mystery, and people fear what they do not understand. They assign power to what they cannot predict. When you are silent, people project onto you their own ideas. Some see wisdom, others see cunning, some imagine cruelty. But all of them sense strength, because strength is control, and silence is the highest form of control. The need to be heard is emotional. It's rooted in ego, in insecurity, in a craving for validation. The prince has no such need. He does not rush to answer questions. He does not chase clarity. He knows that confusion can be a tactic, that silence can be a trap, that saying nothing often says everything. Look around and observe how easily men are baited by words. One insult and they erupt, one challenge and they defend, one accusation and they begin to explain. They fall into every trap. They open their mouths when they should be tightening their grip. Their desire to be seen reveals them. Their need to be understood weakens them. The prince watches this and smiles, because he knows. He wins the moment they speak. He lets them come to him. He lets them trip over their own words. He allows their own voices to undo them. And when he finally does speak, it is not to join the noise. It is to silence it. His words are rare, carefully chosen, delivered like commands, not conversations, and that scarcity gives them weight. The fewer words you speak, the more people lean in to hear them. The more you withhold, the more they want, and desire leads to submission. Fear is not created through threats. It is created through mystery, through unpredictability, through the absence of weakness, and that absence is only possible when the tongue is controlled. When you refuse to be drawn out, when you no longer need to be heard like the rest of them. Most people speak to prove they are alive, but the prince remains silent to remind them he is in control. In a world where everyone is shouting, the one who says nothing becomes the most powerful voice in the room. You have been taught to speak your truth, to voice your feelings, to express yourself at all costs. But in the world of power, this is a fatal mistake. A prince does not speak to feel better. He speaks to gain advantage. He does not share to be understood. He shares only to influence. And when there is nothing to gain, he says nothing at all. The tongue is a double-edged blade. One edge strikes your enemies, the other cuts your own throat, and most men bleed without ever realizing it. Machiavelli's warning is not just about silence, it is about control of your words, of your reactions, of your presence. To remain silent in the right moments is not passivity, it is precision, it is psychological warfare, and it separates the rulers from the ruled. So the next time you feel the urge to speak, ask yourself, will this word build my power or betray it? And if the answer is not certain, remain silent and let them wonder.